Hey everybody, this is Andrea Jenson from the Cash Flow CFO, and you're listening to the Cash Flow CFO Podcast, the show that explores the financial side of running a business for people who want to maximize profitability and scale with confidence. If you want to make smart financial decisions based on data and put more of your hard-earned profits into your pocket, this is the podcast for you. This episode of the Cash Flow CFO podcast is brought to you by the Cash Flow CFO. Did you know that on average, business owners have up to 84% of their personal net worth tied up in their business? Our virtual CPAs and CFOs, as well as accounting and bookkeeping experts, empower business owners just like you to make big leaps that help them maximize profitability and scale with confidence. Visit thecashflowcfo.com for more information, and thank you for listening.
Hey everyone, it's Andrea, and our guest for today is Jamie Van Cuyk. Jamie is the founder and lead strategist of Growing Your Team, helping women-owned small businesses become confident leaders who hire right every single time. I love that. Drawing from over 15 years of leadership expertise, Jamie teaches her clients how to master the art of hiring. By learning the dynamics of each company and their specific needs, she helps them find their perfect fit, long-lasting team members and avoid the hiring and firing cycle. On the personal side, Jamie lives in St. Petersburg, Florida, beautiful, with her husband and 2 daughters, is a hobby winemaker. Ooh, we'll have to talk about that. And loves to travel and enjoys exercises that take her feet off the ground, including rock climbing and aerial dance. How cool. Welcome to the show, Jamie.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. And I'm so excited to talk about what you do and how you help business owners, because I'm sure every single listener and viewer has had a bad hire at some point in their business life. And I tell you, those are so painful because the amount of money that it costs you, the amount of time of yourself, your team, and the frustration and frankly, disappointment, right? You kick yourself a little bit when you have those bad hires. It's a real thing. And I love what you do, Jamie, because this is probably an area that people don't even realize the impact that it's having on them, financially and emotionally and team morale and all of those things. So I would love to jump in and just tell us a little bit about what you do, why you do it, how did you end up in this line of work?
Yeah. So, I'll uncover all that, which really ties into a lot of what you were saying. So I came from corporate and international marketing company, and I always knew I wanted to run my own business. So I left that job shortly after my second daughter was born to start a software development company with my husband, which 6 months later, I was like, I hate this. I need to get out of this. I'm not happy. I didn't leave a job I loved just to have a job I hate just to call myself a business owner. I'm like, so what else can I do? And I was lucky enough that when I left the company that I had left, they're like, can you stay on as a consultant and just help us with a few projects? And 2 of the projects that I was helping with that really took the most of my time were around leadership consulting and helping train leaders and helping a brand new leader really become a first-time manager and everything. And I was like, I love this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a consulting company and I'm going to go and I'm going to train people in the corporate world how to be first-time managers and all those skills that it takes to be a first-time manager. Because just because you are good at your individual contributor job doesn't mean you actually know anything about leading people and leading teams and all that fun stuff.
100%. I was like,
yeah, but I was like, I have no idea how to package this or what to sell. I don't have a huge network of people I could just go and talk to that are decision makers at companies. So I was like, I'm going to leverage my chamber membership that I have, and I'm just going to go start talking to people for market research type purposes. And I started having these conversations. And instead of talking to people in the corporate world, I found myself always speaking to small business owners at these events. And they were the people I had the most easy conversations with. And I'd be like, okay, well, they're not really my target audience, but let me ask them, what are your problems anyway? So I was like, I'll learn, I'll see what's out there. And over again, people were telling me their number one challenge in their business was hiring. And I would hear it took me 5 years to find a good hire. I had to hire for this position 8 times before I found someone that would stick. And when they then asked more about what I was doing, they're like, well, can you teach me how to hire? And at first I was like, no, my audience is corporate clients. I'm going to stay in my lane, but I will find you someone. And I tried my hardest to find someone to refer these people to that would specifically help them gain hiring skills with small businesses, like micro businesses. And I couldn't find anyone. The people that were helping, it was either a part of a much larger package where they didn't need all that stuff, or when they referred to small businesses, they were referring to small businesses that had 50 plus employees. They didn't want to work with the micro businesses. And I was just like, okay, but you can't get to 50 plus employees if you make all the wrong hiring decisions and the people you hired really ruin your business. So I was like, where is the help for small businesses? And finally I said, you know what? I have all this knowledge. I know what it is to hire and hire well. I did it a lot in corporate. I helped my peer managers hire. I helped other teams with hiring projects. So I know what it is to hire well. I want to do consulting. People have this need here in small businesses. So why am I saying no all the time? Let me jump in and let me help out. And now we just passed 6 years since Growing Your Team has started.
Very cool. Yeah. So you've had a lot of learning along the way, I would imagine.
Oh, yes.
Especially when you have something in your head of like, this is my target avatar. And then the market tells you there's this other problem to solve, right? So how did you come to terms with like, were you kind of like bummed that you weren't going with the corporate route, or was it just a natural fit for you to change that avatar?
I think it was a mix of both, to be honest, because at that point in time, I think a lot of people hit this as like, you get so focused on a niche and so focused on what you think you should be doing that other stuff just seems so foreign. So I was like, but I know corporate because I work at corporate. I don't know small business. And I realized, small businesses and corporate are different. But when I thought about it and started just having conversations, because at first I was like, let me just have a conversation. I'm not going to sell to you, but maybe I can offer some sort of like consulting and we'll just meet for coffee because you'll give me advice on starting a business and I can give you advice on hiring. And I realized that I might not have worked in small businesses in this capacity, but I understood how to break down the concepts to small businesses. And I had to get out of my own way to understand that I could help someone that was different than the audience that I was going after. And once I understood that, there were then some other things where I needed to get out of my own way. Like I was going too big with everything I was offering. And then it took probably about 1.5 years for me to narrow down and be like, no, I just have to focus on the hiring aspect. Don't try to layer all these other things into there because that's not what my people need.
Right. Yeah. And then it almost prices them out of your service, right? Because you want to provide all this extra value, but if you could just solve the first problem, then they'll work with you again to solve the next problem, right? And then it's that whole, value journey that you're taking them on. So yeah, no, I love that. I think a right hire and a good hire is such a game changer for business owners, and especially at that micro business level, because I'm sure that the clients you were working with were wearing multiple hats. They were kind of running the circus, the ringleader, as one of my mentors calls it at that point. And finding that right hire and somebody that you can trust and has the capabilities to start taking things off of your plate and off of your shoulders as that business owner, game changer.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Especially because a lot of the businesses that we work with are hiring for a role for the first time. So it might not be your very first employee, but it's the first time in your business that you as the business owner are letting go of these select tasks. So it's the first time you're letting someone else really do this and really take charge of these things. And we're going in and we're helping you figure it out. And we're helping you feel comfortable delegating those items because it's something new for you to do. Right. And just because you've maybe let go of like what you see as like possibly the smaller back-end activities that don't touch your client directly, and you might feel more comfortable with that. There's sometimes those other things that you need to delegate because you're overworked, but they're just harder to let go of because your clients directly feel the impact of that work.
Right. Yeah. And I think too, a lot of times those business owners become the bottleneck in their growth.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think it's important to also mention, right, as your company grows, as your revenue level grows, what the units that you're serving, right, has to grow proportionately. And you can only do so much at each level until you need to bring in new team members. And so that's, when your org chart expands. And I like what you said, when it might not be their first hire, but it's the first hire for a new position, because there's so much that has to go into the thought process of that. Okay. A lot of times I see business owners, they hire the person, not for the role.
Mm-hmm.
And because they haven't clearly defined what that role is, what are the actual functions of that? What are the skill sets? You could take it from there, right? Like, what are all the components that go into when somebody is expanding their org chart and they're creating that new position? What are some of the things that they need to be thinking through before they hire that person or go out and source that person?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of times we think about, I just need help. I just need help and I'll figure it out. If I can get this off my plate, things will get better. And maybe, for example, let's talk about marketing. We're like, I just need someone who can do marketing because it's not my zone of genius. But maybe when we started off as our business, we're really self-branded. So it's kind of like this give and take of like, I need someone to help me, but I still need to be involved because it needs to be my face. It needs to be my words. It needs to be my knowledge that's being shared. So we're in this thing there, but we're like, okay, I just need someone who can do this for me. But we don't really think about, what is it that they're doing? What do we want to get out of that person being there? It's one thing to hire someone to be kind of the executor. Okay, this content is put together. I just need you to schedule it. I just need you to go and create this image using this template that's already created. There's no thought process. Here are the words, go put it in. That's completely different than, I need someone who is an expert at this type of marketing, who is going to take me from making this much money a month to this much money a month. So that significant increase. And I need them to know what to do, how to do it, how to evaluate if things are going wrong, how to make adjustments without me being involved, because that's not my zone of genius. And maybe I was doing it to get us here, but I can't be doing it going forward either, because I don't have the knowledge to keep doing that, or I don't have the time to keep doing it. Mm-hmm. And so we really need to think about, what is the outcome of this position? What is it going to do for our business? And a lot of times when I ask my clients, when we're going in that kickoff call to really define these roles, I was like, what's the goal of this position? They'll say, to save me time. And I'm like, that's great, but why this position? What is this position going to do for you? How is it going to save you time? What is the results? What's going to make you look back 6 months from now and say, yes, I hired the right person in this role? And so we really need to think is like, what is that impact? And then start creating a position that is going to achieve that impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And to layer in the financial side of that, when you're planning out this position and the functions, right? The key performance indicators, right? Because you have to, you want to give any new position, you want to give it some metrics, right? So that they know what success looks like in the role. You know what success looks like, and there's no ambiguity there. There's like, it's very, the data will tell you, are you being successful? Yes or no, with as much as you can make tangible, right? There's some intangible things that have to happen too. But if you can get that piece layered in, and then also look at the hire, the position that you're creating should bring in 3 to 10 times the revenue that you're paying for that role. So I think if you can marry those, all the things that you said, Jamie, because those are all spot on, and then put in some financial metrics, you're really setting yourself up for success in that role as you continue to expand your org chart. And then that way too, the whole other thing we could talk about, Jamie, is the impact of how much does a bad hire truly cost you in your business, right? You've got the monetary burn and lost money that you've it's not an investment anymore. It's an expense.
Right.
And then you also have the time, right? Whether you were training or you had somebody else on your team training, taking them away from their core responsibilities in the company and things like that. So what experience do you have with that? What have you seen working with business owners to help them with their hiring?
Yeah. So there's a lot that we can go and talk into about that. So first, let's talk about kind of what you mentioned is the position really needs to pay for itself. And that's one thing that we need to think about is how is this position going to pay for itself? What is that return on the investment? And when you think about that too, when you're defining that role, it really helps you figure out another layer of what that role should be and what it should look like. Mm-hmm. It also helps you sometimes avoid creating jack of all trade roles, because if this needs to be their focus, because this is how they're going to bring in revenue for you or how they're going to impact the revenue being brought in, we don't want to water down those tasks watered down by piling on all this other stuff. And sometimes it's better to have multiple maybe contractors or fractional roles or part-time roles versus trying to fit everything into one. So knowing that ROI and how it's going to get achieved, whether it's by you doing the extra client work or them doing the client work, them doing the sales, you doing the sales, you need to know and understand that. So that way you build the role appropriately. And also, so you're going after the right role financially. Yes, maybe you want a director of marketing or whatever that role is, but you can only afford a marketing assistant. You need to know that, and you need to know that impact, so that way you make all those right decisions from the start and you get the right position onto your team. And when you hire the wrong person, it really does have a significant financial impact. Studies show that it's a minimum of $7,000 impact to your company when you hire the wrong person. And it can fluctuate depending on the level of the role, what that number looks like going up from there. It says those higher level roles in an organization, so if you think your very senior leadership roles, you can factor up to about a year of that position's pay impact to your organization if that person doesn't work out. Mm-hmm. And below that, it'll be a little bit less than that, but it'll still be significant. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is a lot of the things that you mentioned. It's the time that was spent training that person that went to waste because that person didn't work out. It's the mistakes that they made that then someone else had to do the rework, or they themselves had to do the rework. So that was time spent not doing something else. It's the time you spent as that manager correcting their behavior and retraining them or thinking about them when you should have been thinking about something else or doing something else. It's that client that was unhappy with their work or unhappy with something that they maybe directly or indirectly touched. So that way you had to refund that client, or you lost that client, or you had to do something, maybe give them a discount on a future thing so you could keep them as a client. So there's all these things where they touch things financially outside of just their direct paycheck. Mm-hmm. And then when they don't work out, you then have to spend the time hiring again. So that's time that you're not spending with a client or generating revenue because you're spending time interviewing. It's then time that you are training that new person instead of spending time bringing in revenue for the organization. So all these things add up that you're looking at a minimum of $7,000 every time you hire.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, and depending on the level of the position, right? Upwards 50,000 to 100,000. Absolutely. Right? Yeah. Oh, making me sweat over here, Jamie. Yeah, but it's so true. And it's something that I don't think, I think business owners, they drag their feet long enough till the pain is so intense that they just hire the first person, right? And they just say, I just need somebody in here. So they don't do the due diligence ahead of time. Yeah.
Start scaling with confidence today. The Cash Flow CFO is a full-service accounting and fractional CFO firm. So it goes without saying that our financial experts are phenomenal at number crunching. But more than that, they are expert communicators who will connect all those complicated financial dots in a way that just makes sense. We don't wait in the wings and check in every so often either. With our boutique approach, we position ourselves front and center, watching over every dollar that comes in and out of your business as if it was our own. So if your business is making money and you're ready to take it to the next level, but you're not sure you completely understand your numbers, and you're looking for that trusted guide to help you build a roadmap to reach your financial goals, it sounds like we would be a great fit. Visit thecashflowcfo.com and let's get started empowering you to build and scale your business the way you want to today.
So let's say you've gone through the process of mapping out the role. You know what the KPIs are. You know what you can afford to pay. Oh, you know what else popped in my head when you were talking about that? And we see this so much, and it just like, they'll give a title that has nothing to do with the position. Like they'll call somebody a director of something, but they're really, a junior level. And that comes back to bite them in the butt, because here's why. That team member at some point might go out and go, oh, I'm going to go see what other people are making with this title. And they go out and they, go to Indeed or any of those job posting places, and they see, oh my gosh, this title, I could be making this, this, and this. And they come back and then they say, oh, I want a raise because I should really be making this. And it's such a mixed match of like, no, that is not, you're not even actually doing those functions, and you could never go out and get hired at that role because you don't have the qualifications. But business owners throw around titles all the time, and it blows my mind all the time when I come across that. And I'm just like, where did you come up with that title? Oh, I don't know. I just thought that's what would be. Like, oh.
Right. Yeah. I see that all the time. My very first job out of college, I was giving the title Director of PR and Marketing. And I was just like, yeah, I'll take that. That looks great on a resume. And then when I was applying for that next job, I was just like, first off, I should never been had the title of director. And then there was other things that nothing I did really fell under the category of PR or marketing. I was pulled for like all these other projects, and I'm just like, what do I put on my resume? And then I felt like I was lying. So I was like, well, this technically wasn't my title, but it's what I'm putting on the resume. And it was just like this whole thing. And that's like one of the things like we do all the time is we help businesses figure out, what should you call this position? Mm-hmm. At a minimum, I say you can really call it whatever you want internally. So if you want to call it, I don't know, unicorn hunter internally, like I don't care, but what are you going to put on a job posting that's going to attract the right person? We don't want to call it a director of HR, director of marketing, director of operations, if it's really an associate role, because you're not going to attract the right person, because the people you want to click are not going to click. And the people that do click are going to look at that and say, that's below me. I don't want that job.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's just going to cause more of a headache without knowing what you're even, a lot of people, of course they do it, unintentional, but it just sets everybody up for a lot of headache down the road. So,
right. Yeah. So, but I think you were asking before is where we got off of that little tangent about kind of like, what should we really be doing to do our due diligence during the hiring process? Exactly. And so I want to make sure that we do talk about that. Because one of the things that I remind my clients with all the time is any shortcuts you take during the hiring process will cost you when it comes to managing that team member. Mm. So you're like, yes, I'm going to go and hire this person because I'm just tired of interviewing and I just want to save time, but it's going to cost you later. So you want to make sure you do your due diligence. You need to set time aside to actually be able to interview people, to review resumes, and not just be swayed by, all right, this is the best of what I reviewed so far, so we're going to go with this person. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that you want to do is, one, make sure you write a job posting. Now, of course, we already talked about making sure you're going after the right position and all that. So once you know that, you want to make sure you write a job posting that speaks to your ideal candidate. It's kind of the same, like when it comes to marketing, there's this saying, if you market to everyone, you really market to no one. Mm-hmm. And it's the exact same with the job posting. If you make your job posting so generic that really it speaks to everyone, you're less likely to get qualified candidates to apply, because people are looking for the job that they're going to connect with. They're looking for what they're going to say is their home. They're looking for the thing where they're going to be happy going to work. Mm-hmm. So they want to read a job posting and walk away with the feeling of, oh my gosh, they just described me. That's exactly what I've done in my past. That's exactly what I want to do. This job was made for me. Mm-hmm. And that also means with that job posting, you're going to have people that read that and say, no, that's not for me, pass. And that's okay. We are okay, and we want to turn people off with our job posting, not because we're being rude or offensive or anything like that, because we're just being honest. Because when people deselect themselves from the process because we're honest, that's one less resume you have to look at. That's one less person you potentially have to interview. So it's a good thing. I would rather see people get only 10 resumes and have them be people they're excited about interviewing than someone get 200 resumes and feel about all of them. So you want to speak to the person you want to hire. So use language that describes your person to a T. We use language a lot of times of the idea person for this position is for you if, and we describe it. Like, so we want them saying, yes, that was me. So that's step one. Step two is just remember, you are not hiring someone based off their resume. Their resume is only to say, do they qualify for a conversation? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times people spend way too long dissecting everything on a resume. And we don't need to do that, because a lot of times when you try to go through everything, you're letting biases make your decision for you. You're making up stories about the candidate. And you can take two resumes and they can look almost identical and the candidates be completely different when they come in. So we don't want to make up stories. We don't want to let biases sway us. So we just want to have like a few things that we're saying, if we see these on a resume, they qualify for a conversation. That first conversation is going to be short, anywhere 15 to 30 minutes with each person that qualifies for that first round interview. You're then going to have a second round interview where you're going to go into deeper conversations. But that first one just helps to weed people out of the process that were good enough to get that conversation. But once you talk about what's on the resume, you realize it's not the right alignment. Mm-hmm. So with your interview, you also need to be prepared with interview questions that uncover if this person is your ideal candidate. So every question you ask should be specific to that role and who is going to be successful in that role. I was once working with a client and they were having us hire for 3 different positions. And I said, okay, well, give me what you've been using. And the interview guide they sent me was the exact same for all 3 positions. Now, this was at a law firm where one person was a paralegal, one person was a receptionist, and one person was their marketing team member. Those roles do not have the same skills. They do not have to have the same knowledge and experience in their background. There's nothing similar besides the fact that they're going to be working for the same organization. Yet they were using the exact same interview guide because they went out and did research and was like, well, an article on Google told me these were popular interview questions. And I'm like, yeah, just because they're popular doesn't mean they're right for your position. Right. Every role needs to have its own set of interview questions to uncover the skills and backgrounds that's needed to be successful in that role. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things you really need to do is make sure you have everything set up so you can attract the right person and identify the right person in your process.
So good. So good. And you know what? Here's the truth. It takes time and it's kind of painful to sit down and have to like really think these things through, but you're busy, right? We're always doing a million things and you have to stop and you really have to put some thought into this, but it's an asset. And once you have built this asset, right, and you have it and you're using it, your team is using it, whoever's doing that sourcing and that interviewing, it starts to make things so much better, right? But I'm sure you get pushback from your clients of like, I don't want to do this right now.
Right. Yeah. And so we have multiple different ways that we work with clients. And for some of our clients, we do the first rounds of recruiting and the interviews and everything for them because they recognize that they don't have the time and that it's more cost effective for them to outsource those first interviews, reviewing the resumes and everything than them doing it. Yeah. And then we have other clients that they're like, I want to do it myself. I just need the guidance. I need the support to make sure I'm making the right decisions. And one of the things that we do for those clients is that follow-up. Okay, you said you were going to have these interviews. Did you have the interviews? Did you review the resumes? Come on, we need to make decisions. And it's pushing that along because there's too often like we get stuck in the process and we get stuck doing the rest of the work that needs to get done that we think, oh, only 4 days have passed since I did that interview and I haven't provided feedback. It's no big deal. And that candidate is sitting there saying, oh my gosh, I need a job. That 4 days feels like an eternity. And so you really have to keep moving in the process because your perspective of hiring and the candidate's perspective of hiring are 2 different things. And right now we're in a market where there's lots of opportunity out there. So you need to move fairly quickly in order to not lose good talent. Because if it's someone that you're like, this person's amazing, chances are someone else thinks they're amazing too.
Yeah.
And
it's time there.
Yeah. And I've worked with a business before and they're like, well, I really want someone that loves my organization and is going to work for me. So if I lose them, I lose them. But then they get upset still when the person decides to make it go elsewhere because they took too long to make a decision. And I said, they only love you so much before they get to work with you. They only know so much information. But no one's interviewing. Well, typically people aren't interviewing just for the sake of interviewing. They're interviewing because they need a new job, because maybe they were part of a layoff, or they moved, or they had to follow their spouse when they moved. So they had to leave their old job behind and they need a job. Or there's something going on at their current job that they really want to leave. And if either one of those things going on, they're not going to wait months for you to make a decision, because they don't know what that decision is going to be. You could be their number one choice of where they want to work, but what happens if you end up saying no? So they might go to their number two choice because that person's making them an offer and they don't want to be left with nothing. So you have to be making decisions and moving through the process in a timely manner, or you lose candidates.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure we've all experienced that before, where you're like, darn, I really wanted that person. But yeah, for whatever reason, you drug your feet too long, and then somebody else, they took another offer because they, exactly like you said, they couldn't wait.
Yep.
So, yes, so true. Oh gosh, Jamie, this has been such a great conversation. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you think would be super valuable for our listeners and our viewers to kind of take away as food for thought, or kind of a tip or trick that you would recommend?
Yeah. So one of the things I always like to say is, when we're getting to that part where we're kind of fearing the delegation, we're like, oh, should I do this? Should I keep it on my plate? Which happens at every level. As I mentioned, like, we're typically working with people that are adding new positions. We once worked with an organization that had 200 employees, and we split the CEO role into 3 full-time roles because she was still holding on to way too much. So don't think you're ever past the point where you might be fearing delegation. It can happen no matter the size of your organization. Just ask yourself, does this need to be done right, or does it need to be done by me? And if the answer is it just needs to be done right, you can train someone to do it right. There are things in your business that do need to be done by you. As your business grows, that list should actually be getting smaller and smaller.
Yep.
So there's stuff today we're going to look at and say, no, this needs to be done by me. But a year from now, you're going to realize that doesn't need to be done by me anymore. So keep reviewing and going back through those things, so that way you can say, all right, it's time to get this off my plate. I can train someone. I can trust someone, because I can train someone to do it right. And of course, that means you actually have to train someone what it means to do it right. People aren't mind readers. And taking the words of my daughter that just turned 11, she said this to me when she was about 4 years old, is she goes, Mommy, because I said so is not an answer. So just remember that when you're training people and you're teaching them the why, because I said so is not an answer. You really need to know why and be able to explain why things need to be done a certain way. So that way people can do it right and can match your expectations. Because typically when people are not meeting expectations, it's because you're failing to train them how to do it properly. And sometimes we have to train people more than once, because their perception and our perception of the same words are different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that too, because I said so doesn't incorporate your values. It doesn't incorporate your culture. But if you can tie it back to, this matters because one of our values is XYZ, and this is a representation of that, you're bringing it full circle, and you're I love that. Yeah, that's such a great point.
Well, it's also one of those things, if you think about it, there are some things where it doesn't actually matter. It's just the way you've been doing it. And we're not always right. Yeah. Just because we've been doing something a certain way doesn't mean it's the way that it needs to be done. So if you think about it, I think photography editing is one of these things. Typically, we hire a company because we like the style of the photographs. But are we going to know minute detail? So maybe the main photographer, the main editor would have edited it one way and someone else would have edited it another way. But as the customer at the end of the day, if it all still fits in that style that I'm looking for, I don't know the difference. I don't know who edited it. I don't know like anything like that. So it's like sometimes we have to understand that other people's way is okay. And if it's not going to impact the client experience, if it's not going to go against regulations that we have to follow, laws that we have to follow, or anything like that, safety guidelines, sometimes we just have to let go and let other people's way be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reality is too, as you grow and scale your company, you're bringing in experts that have a better way of doing whatever it is, right? You're hiring that management level, you're hiring, other people that are really good at what they do. And that becomes and makes your company so much richer and better, because you're getting this collaboration. It's not just you anymore, right? Because as your company grows and as your org chart expands, you have to let go, and you have to, as you start to reduce, like you said, I love how you put that, right? You're reducing the things off of your, responsibility list because you're bringing in other people to do it who are, talented, who are experienced, and who might have a different way that ends up being better, and your customer experience, becomes that much better for everybody involved. And so, yes,
exactly.
So good, Jamie. I love this. Well, tell everybody where they can learn more about you and your company and reach out if they want to continue the conversation with you.
Yeah, so you can learn more about growing your team by heading over to our website, which is growingyourteam.com. We also hang out a lot on Instagram, which we are at Growing Your Team on Instagram. So connect with us. If you're curious about next steps in hiring, schedule a call, send us a message. We're happy to chat.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been such a great conversation. And I hope that all of our listeners and viewers got some really good takeaways, because Jamie dropped some great nuggets there of save you a lot of headache and dollars go back in your pocket when you do things, these things specifically, the right order, the right way, and well thought out. So thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and review, and we'll catch you on the next episode. If you're looking for more content or resources in the meantime, check out our website for information, blogs, and our I've Got a Spreadsheet for That series. That's thecashflowcfo.com. Again, thecashflowcfo.com. We can't wait to hear from you.